1. Polybius. Back in 1981, if you walked into any of the suburban arcades around Portland, Oregon, you'd probably hear kids talking about a weird new cabinet called Polybius. It was just a plain black box with no company logo on it. But the graphics on the screen, these super smooth lines folding into geometric shapes, looked years ahead of anything else in the room. Kids who got their hands on it said it was unlike any other game. It just hooked you instantly. You couldn't walk away. But then, the rumors took a dark turn. People said players were walking away from the machine with massive headaches, night terrors, and even memory loss. A few stories claimed kids had full-on seizures right there on the floor. It didn't take long for everyone to whisper that the game was actually a secret government psychological experiment, and that men in plain suits were coming in every week, not to empty the quarters, but to grab data from the machine. Then, just like that, it vanished. Some said it disappeared overnight. Others said it was just unplugged and never seen again. So what's the real story? Well, if you look at the arcade business records, sales catalogs, or local newspapers from 1981, Polybius doesn't exist anywhere. The first time anyone ever actually wrote down the name Polybius was on a retro gaming website in 1998, almost 20 years later. When researchers dug into it, they found out the legend was just a mashup of a few real, totally separate things that happened that year. A teenager in Portland had blacked out after playing a massive marathon session of the game Tempest. The FBI had actually put hidden cameras inside some arcade machines around town to bust an illegal gambling ring. And parents everywhere were just terrified of what video games were doing to their kids' brains. None of those things meant much on their own, but when kids mixed them all together on the playground, they created Polybius. 2. Watership Down. In October 1978, a British animated movie called Watership Down hit the theaters. If you saw the poster back then, it looked beautiful, just some cute rabbits hanging out in a green meadow under a nice, soft sky. The censors in the UK gave it a U rating, which meant it was perfectly safe for all ages, the exact same rating they gave to cartoons made for toddlers. Naturally, parents took their little kids expecting something sweet and gentle. They were completely blindsided. What they actually sat through was a brutal, terrifying story about a rabbit colony getting torn apart by bulldozers, nightmarish visions of fields literally soaked in blood, and a terrifying, scarred dictator rabbit named General Woundward, who ran his colony through pure violence and fear. As the movie goes on, it doesn't just hint at the horror, it puts it right in your face. You watch rabbits get caught in wire traps and slowly strangle on screen. You see an entire colony get buried alive, clawing frantically for air as heavy digging machines dump dirt into their tunnels. By the end, you're watching a long, bloody, vicious fight between two rabbits, followed by a dog tearing through the warren while the survivors run for their lives. There was no sugarcoating here. It was all drawn in that same soft, peaceful animation style as the opening credits. Generations of parents have said the exact same thing. Nothing on that poster prepared them for what their kids saw. The movie kept that kid-friendly rating for 45 years, pulling in heavy complaints almost every single year, until the censors finally changed the rating in 2023. There's no urban legend to bust here. Watership Down really was handed to toddlers, and it really did show them a bloodbath. The trauma wasn't a rumor. It was sitting right there on the poster, completely misclassified. 3. Blackmasking. On April 27, 1982, a group of California politicians gathered in Sacramento for a very strange meeting. They were there to listen to Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, played entirely in reverse. A witness claimed that if you spun the record backward, it hid a secret message praising the devil, with lines like, "Here's to my sweet Satan," buried under the audio. The band's record label put out a simple statement saying their turntables only spun in one direction, but nobody cared. Preachers all over the country started running massive seminars about backward masking, warning everyone that rock bands were planting subliminal commands in their music to brainwash teenagers. People wrote whole books about it, and panicked parents started throwing huge record-burning rallies in church parking lots. By 1990, the panic got so intense it ended up in a courtroom. The heavy metal band Judas Priest was sued by the families of two young men after a tragic suicide pact, claiming a hidden backward message in the song Better By You, Better Than Me, had forced them to do it. On the witness stand, The frontman Rob Halford admitted that the band had messed around with backward recording before, but just as a joke. To show the judge how ridiculous the whole lawsuit was, he played other random tracks from the album in reverse right there in court. It was total gibberish, random noises that only sounded like words if you were already told what you were supposed to be listening for. The judge threw the case out, finding zero proof that a backward sound could plant thoughts in a kid's head. Psychologists later explained that what people were actually experiencing was a mind trick called pareidolia, where your brain forces meaning onto random static noise the moment someone tells you what to listen for. Every single time a real backward message was found, it was just a band pulling a prank. The panic was totally real, but the devil wasn't there. 4. Mikey. In 1972, Quaker Oats put out a commercial for Life cereal starring a quiet, picky little toddler named Mikey. In the ad, his older brothers push a bowl of cereal toward him because they refuse to eat it, but Mikey tries a spoonful and absolutely loves it. The line "he likes it, hey Mikey," instantly became one of the biggest catchphrases in TV history, and that commercial ran on television for over 10 years. But by the late 1970s, a really dark rumor started spreading across elementary school playgrounds. Kids were telling each other as absolute fact that the little boy who played Mikey had died. The story went that he ate a whole pack of Pop Rocks candy, drank a can of soda right after, and the carbon dioxide exploded his stomach. The rumor got so out of hand that it actually reached the actor's house. His mom answered the phone one day to find a woman crying, trying to offer condolences for her son's death, while the real Mikey was literally walking through the back door, coming home from a baseball game. The company making Pop Rocks took a massive hit. Their sales completely crashed, forcing them to buy massive full-page ads in 45 different newspapers and mail 50,000 letters to school principals just to explain that the absolute worst thing Pop Rocks and soda could do to a kid was make them burp. The reality is a whole lot more normal. John Gilchrist, the kid who played Mikey, grew up completely fine, went into advertising and sports media, and is still alive today. He even mentioned in interviews that he still keeps Life cereal in his kitchen. Fact-checkers and television shows later proved there was never any danger at all, just a playground story that was way too wild to stop spreading, about a kid whose face everyone knew, but whose real name nobody bothered to find out. 5. The chain letter. Way before anyone could share a creepy post with a single tap on a screen, a folded piece of paper was making its way into mailboxes across the country, offering the exact same deal. Make copies of this letter, mail them to a specific number of people in a few days, and you'll get good luck. But if you break the chain, things are going to get bad. One specific version that made the rounds in the 1970s told a scary story about a guy named Zoran Barakili. It said he got the letter, laughed it off, and threw it in the trash, only to drop dead mysteriously exactly 9 days later. The letter never explained how he died, and it didn't need to. It had already landed in the next mailbox, where a kid was tearing it open at the kitchen table, frantically trying to figure out how many friends they needed to handwrite a full page of cursive for before their time ran out. Kids would literally waste entire sunny afternoons copying these letters out of pure terror of what might happen if they missed the deadline. The funny thing is, if you trace these letters back, they started as innocent charity fundraising letters all the way back in the 1880s, long before anyone added a curse to them. But by the middle of the 1900s, the scare tactic became the whole point. There is zero record of any Zoran Barakili ever existing. No obituaries, no news articles, nothing. And there has never been a single real case of anyone getting hurt because they ignored a chain letter. The paper just needed a fake name and a fake horror story to scare kids into passing it on. The format never went away. It just moved from envelopes to text messages and social media posts, carrying the same old threat in a digital wrapper. 6. The Man in the Moon. In March 1980, a newspaper in Minneapolis ran a story about a bizarre rumor exploding across town. People were claiming that the historic logo stamped on every single bottle of Procter & Gamble soap was actually a hidden satanic symbol. The design showed an old man's face inside a crescent moon, looking out at 13 stars. The rumor claimed that if you looked closely at the curls in the man's beard, they perfectly traced out the number 666, the mark of the beast. Soon, the story grew even crazier, with people claiming the president of the company had gone on national television and openly admitted that the corporate funded the Church of Satan. Nobody could ever tell you what TV show he was on or what year it happened, but the rumor spread like wildfire through churches and word of mouth anyway. The panic was wild. In just 2 months in the summer of 1982, Procter & Gamble got over 15,000 phone calls and letters from freaked-out customers asking if they worshipped the devil. The company ended up taking people to court to stop them from spreading the lie, including a local TV weatherman who actually repeated the rumor live on the air. The real history behind the logo is incredibly boring compared to the rumor. The mark went all the way back to 1851, when workers on shipping docks just painted a simple star on crates of candles so they can tell them apart. Over the years, that mark turned into 13 stars for the original colonies and a decorative man-in-the-moon face, which was super popular on packaging back then. No executive ever went on a talk show to talk about Satan, because it never happened. But the rumor was so incredibly stubborn that Procter & Gamble eventually changed their logo twice in the 90s, just to make a century-old candle mark stop looking like a threat to people. 7. Mothman. On the night of November 15, 1966, 2 young couples were driving past an old, abandoned weapons plant outside Point Pleasant, West Virginia, when they saw something terrifying standing right in the middle of the road. They told the police it was a gray figure over 6 feet tall, with massive wings and huge eyes that glowed bright red in their headlights. They said the creature flew after their car, easily keeping up with them at 90 miles an hour before it finally backed off at the town border. The local paper printed the story the next day, and within days, a ton of other people came forward. Volunteer firefighters, a local guy whose dog disappeared after chasing glowing red circles into the woods, and workers who saw a giant flying shape overhead all shared their stories. A local newspaper editor named the creature the Mothman, and the name stuck. People kept seeing it for the next 13 months all over the region. Then, on December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge connecting the town to Ohio suddenly collapsed during heavy rush hour traffic, killing 46 people. In the middle of the tragedy, some residents started saying they had seen the creature sitting on top of the bridge the night before, guessing that it had shown up to warn them about the disaster. After the bridge fell, the Mothman sightings completely stopped. The bridge collapse actually had a very straightforward explanation. Engineers later proved the whole disaster came down to a single cracked steel bar that had been rusting away for decades, a structural failure with nothing supernatural about it. On top of that, wildlife experts at the time pointed out a much more logical answer for the original sightings: sandhill cranes. These massive birds migrate through that exact area in November. They stand almost as tall as a person, have a wingspan over 6 feet, and have bright red patches right around their eyes. While nobody caught a crane at the scene, the math adds up. The name, the dates, and the tragedy were real. Everything else was just connected after the fact.